Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to the World Freedom Day panel discussion, which is organized by International Youth Alliance for Peace. I'm Fatima Simrana Fairoos. I'm thrilled to be your moderator today. So at IYAP, we are a youth-driven organization dedicated to promote peace, inclusion, and sustainability across South Asia. Throughout our annual dialogue series, including webinar and panel discussions, we create space for experts, leaders, and young people to share their insights and learn from each another. With over 300 discussions to date we had, and today's event is one of among that. So today we gather to mark World Freedom Day, observed annually on 9th November. We are pleased to host today's panel discussion on the topic, Reclaiming Freedom in the Digital Age. This event brings to critical issues of two subtopics. One, digital rights and women's freedom, which is exploring the unique challenges and women encountered in the online. And the second topic will go on legal challenges in the technology, which is focusing on privacy, surveillance, and user autonomy. As we navigate an increasingly digital world, discussing this topic is essential to ensure the safe, inclusive, and equitable online space for each and everyone out there. Let's explore how we can protect and reclaim our freedoms in the digital age in the landscape. So we are especially excited today because we are live on our official YouTube channel, IYAP Official. I'd like to extend a special welcome to our participants joining us in the live as well as the registered attendees as well. Also, it's my pleasure, I would like to begin by introducing our panel of the day today. We are incredibly excited to have two distinguished speakers with us who will bring their unique expertise to the conversation today. First, please join me in welcoming Sleesha De Silva, a junior legal officer at the Sri Lankan Press Institute. Sleesha will be delving into the critical issues of digital rights and women's freedom, navigating safety and expression online. Her work at the intersections of media and law give her valuable insight into how digital platforms can both empower and challenge women's rights in digital world. And also we have another guest speaker today. We are honored to have Thanuki Gunasinghe, lawyer and a renowned tech law speaker. Thanuki will explore legal challenges in technology, privacy, surveillance, and user autonomy with us today. Her expertise in tech law will guide us through the complexities of privacy, surveillance, and evolving legal challenges faced by users and the platform in the digital age. Indeed, a very needed topic in this age. We are thrilled to have both of you with us today and look forward to enlightened discussion. Before we moving on to our discussion, I'll give a small session summary to you to get an understanding of today's discussion. After the welcome speech, we have a panelist discussion. Each have 10 minutes for their presentation, and it will followed by 10-minute Q&A session. And also we will open the floor for the audience question for another 10 minutes. And audience out there, we are welcoming your valuable questions in this panel discussion today. And finally, we will wrap up with the closing remark and the group picture. We are look forward your active participations. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Sleesha to take us through her topic today on digital rights and women's freedom, navigating safety and expression online, and provide us with a deeper understanding on this particular topic. Sleesha, the floor is yours.
Hi, Fatima. Good evening. And to all of you, good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me to this panel discussion. So I will be talking about the um, rights of the digital era and women's freedom and how we can navigate safely and expression online. So as we all know that we are living in the era of information and internet online. So I think as much as the rights that we enjoy offline, the online rights are also need to be considered important because nowadays I think most of all of our activities are based on online in social media or like in the internet. I mean, almost all of us are using social media accounts and Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, X, Reddit, all of these things that we are using. So I think like we are base our life like the half of our lives on social media. So I think it's very important to talk about the rights which are online. So with that, I would like to start this introduction by saying how important it is to use, I mean, for women to use the internet, because with that we can actually speak about our issues, our rights, and what are the rights that we are being oppressed by. Because I think as women activists myself, I also speak a lot about women's right issues and the oppression that we have. I mean, we are encountering today in the online platform, because I believe that online platform is a useful education system, because now, as I said earlier, most of us are using online platform. I think most of the people are reading online um, articles and magazine. I don't think like the younger generation nowadays, they don't read newspapers or books, anything like that. So what I also do is I advocate for women's rights issues and all these patriarchal norms and how we can overcome those and the oppression via social media. So with that, but also I would like to say something about this internet is that is sometimes, I mean, not all the time neutral. It's like it has some it has both sides, as in we might be agreeing with one thing, but then some people might not agree with what we are saying. So and like comments on sexism, racism, and homophobic comments, and cyberbullying, cyber harassment, all of these are there in the online platform. So we can't, I mean, we need to know how to use the online platform in a very advocating and very sort of like in a very correct way as women, because we as women may be prone to vile comments, and we get harassed a lot. I mean, I think almost all of us have encountered online harassment and online cyberbullying and online vile comments. I think almost all of us experience that. So with that, and I think now freedom of online expression is in the Article 19 of International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, as well as in our Constitution under Article 14. So when we talk about freedom of expression, we can't be expressing all our thoughts into the online platform, because sometimes we might think something, but then another person might think, okay, this is too racist, or this is too sexist, this is homophobic. So we have to be very careful what we put online, right? So with that, we need to know how we can use the online in a correct way, and then we can't just be putting all our thoughts and expression onto the online platform. And also, I'm working in the Sri Lankan Press Institute. I be working with journalists mainly. So with that, they are also prone to violations of expression, and but sometimes they also do is that they are trying to express their things on I mean online or in the press, but sometimes it may cause different opinions from different people. So yes, I think using the internet properly is very useful for us to sort of navigate how we can use it, and how we can sort of you know um, restrict from all these violations that is happening to us. So with that, I conclude my introduction. Fatima.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ms. Thanuki. Sorry, my apologies, Ms. Sleesha, for this insightful speech. And I believe that the topic is very timely needed one for each and everyone out there who are very much in, actively participating and using the technology everywhere. And indeed, it's very insightful. So now the time we are moving into our second panelist. It's my honor, I now invite Ms. Thanuki, a lawyer and a tech law speaker, to share her expertise on legal challenges in technology. Ms. Thanuki, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope I'm audible. I will be sharing my screen though. Just give me an indication whether it can
Yeah.
hold on.
Your screen is visible.
Okay, my screen is visible, right? Okay. Okay. Right. So today's theme is on freedom in a connected world, in a digital world. So my presentation is very much based on that, but we're looking more on the legal side of things with a greater focus on different challenges to this freedom, and in terms of privacy, in terms of surveillance, and a few other aspects that I would like to introduce today. So without taking too much time, I'm going to go into it really quickly. So in 2016, the United Nations declared online freedom to be a human right that must be protected. So this was in 2016. So we have come, we are in 2024 now. It has been 8 years since this resolution, and it's very important for us to recognize that even bodies like the United Nations has recognized the importance of digital freedom or online freedom. And it is important because even though when it comes to these UN resolutions, even though they're not binding on states, they have a good effect in terms of pushing states to take measures to ensure that particular right or freedom is protected. So this is an important precedent from 2016. So just to give you a bit of wording from that, it said the resolution aims at the promotion, protection, and enjoyment of human rights on the internet. Okay, where they are condemning any nation that deliberately disrupts citizens' internet access. And also that the same rights that an individual has offline, he or she or they should be allowed to have and be safeguarded online as well. Okay, especially concerning freedom of expression, which is there as a part of the UDHR and the ICCPR. Okay, so I'm going to quickly run through what are the aspects of digital freedom in relation to my subject area today. So we can identify a couple of key rights or certain aspects which we can say is included within this basket of digital freedom. One is right to privacy. So here we're talking about protecting personal data, we're talking about communications of people, online activities, and to make sure that your privacy is upheld in the sense that you are not subject to unwarranted surveillance, or that your information is not misused by corporations, not misused by governments. The second one is freedom of expression. You need to be able to share your ideas and opinions online without being censored to a great extent. I'm not talking about having no censorship to the extent where people can create a mess and create chaos in public. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying to be able to share opposing views, okay, while respecting the rights of others. Then the right to access information. We know right to information is also a right guaranteed under the Constitution of Sri Lanka and was touched upon by Ms. De Silva as well. So here we're talking about granting individuals the right to access information and digital services freely, including reliable news, diverse content, open knowledge sources. Then we can also talk about right to anonymity. Okay, you need to have a certain right or a way to exist online anonymously as well, without having to reveal your information. Okay, without being tracked, right? Then we can talk about right to digital literacy, okay? To be able to develop your digital skills so individuals can use technology responsibly, effectively, and safely. Right to disconnect is also a part of our freedom, just like being connected, to be able to disengage from that. In an increasingly digital world, we need to have that freedom to switch off, especially from excessive working hours, to promote a healthy work-life balance. This is especially relevant after COVID, when a lot of work started becoming hybrid or remote, and most workplaces tend to, take so much work from people, irrespective of the time, right? So right to disconnect is important. Cognitive liberty. This is an interesting concept. We don't have time to go into that too much today, but this is about your freedom of thought, your mental privacy, and self-determination over your mental states and your mental processes. This is very important, especially in an era where there's a lot of neurotechnology, there's a lot of targeted advertising, okay? There's a lot of biometric tracking that is done. And for example, okay, we're talking about things like how you will think that you would like to have an ice cream, and you would just search for ice cream on Google. And then the very next moment, you start getting advertisements about ice cream. You'll get nail art inspired by ice cream. Or if it's a donut, donut glaze nails, you get all these inspired ideas popping up on your feeds everywhere, right? That is very much a hindrance to your cognitive liberty, because your thoughts, your mental processes are being tracked and used to provide information to corporations, who can then target and advertise to you and influence the choices that you make. Okay, so this is another thing that we have to think about. It's a new concept. And there are discussions at the moment to recognize cognitive liberty as a separate human right of its own as well. Right to data ownership and control, okay, over your data. Freedom from algorithmic bias and manipulation. Now, this is very important, especially because it's the AI era, and artificial intelligence is naturally biased. We can discuss how and why as we go along today, but this being free from this is very important. Right to cybersecurity and protection from digital threats is another important right, or an aspect of this conversation. Right to transparency in AI and algorithms. Most of the time, people can't explain how AI does what it does. And this makes it difficult to make it relatable and also to create trust in technologies. Okay, if you are to be free in a digital world or a digital setting, you need to be able to understand what's going on. And that is where transparency is an important aspect. We need to strive to create transparency. And it is a right of consumers to be able to know, to be able to ask for explainability of tools that they use. Okay, so this is another aspect of it, I would think. Right to ethical and digital accountability is an important aspect that we need to consider here. To digital equity and inclusion, to make sure that people are included in the processes. So if we take big tech companies globally, most of the time the global south is not represented in those conversations, at those tables, at those decision-making tables. And that essentially leaves us out of this. Even if you take the data, the training data doesn't include so much of examples of Sri Lanka, or maybe like some rural village in India, or some hidden part of Thailand, right? It is mainly based on the West. This digital equity and inclusion is an important aspect. If you want to truly be free in a connected world, you need to have equal access to those resources, and you need to be a part of that conversation. Freedom from digital addiction and behavioral design, also a very important thing, because now we see even in the US, a lot of state laws are coming up saying we need to increase the age at which young children should be able to join certain platforms, gaming platforms being mandated to indicate what is AI generated material, to give alerts when children are on it for too long, right? Because recently, I don't know if you all would have seen, but a 16-year-old had developed a sexual relationship with an AI chatbot. And when he couldn't be united with her, he said he's coming home to her and he killed himself. I'm sorry if this is a trigger for anybody, but this is the state of the world that we are in. It's digital addiction and it's behavioral design that pulls in the young people to spend lots of time on it and just find themselves isolated in an increasingly connected world, away from all that noise. So that freedom from that kind of thing is also very important. To have a sense of safety is very important. And also right to self-determination in virtual and augmented spaces like the metaverse, to have autonomy, to have consent over their virtual identities on these platforms is very important. I do have a few more slides, Simrana, that I have prepared, but I'm not sure if I have enough time to go into them. Would there be any other opportunity to highlight some of those as we go along?
Yeah, I believe you can take 4 minutes.
Sorry?
You can take 5 minutes.
Okay,
to
okay,
conclude the
great.
presentation.
I will just run through very quickly. Also, there's right to forget or right to be forgotten, to erase your data. Now, with like personal data protection laws, even in Sri Lanka coming into play, you have a right to say, I don't want this anymore, and to reclaim my digital footprint. Right to a secure digital identity is very important, to make sure that your identity is not modified in an unauthorized way. To be free from digital surveillance and profiling. We will go into this as we go into the questions later on. So some of the current challenges very quickly that we have is that there's a lot of mass surveillance, even though we don't know it, it's happening. There's algorithmic bias in AI and it can discriminate drastically. There are several examples, Amazon, Google Gemini. If you just Google these, you will find what we're talking about when it comes to algorithmic bias. Censorship, limits on free speech, big problem there. Cybersecurity threats is a standard issue for many years. Digital inequality, which I told you about, digital divide, and now the AI divide is also getting added on to that. Addictive design, behavioral profiling, which I told you about the ice cream example, targeted advertising, that's behavioral profiling. Then inconsistent privacy laws globally, low digital literacy, this is the standard issue. And platforms like this are very important to create that level of awareness. Cognitive liberty erosion, which I spoke about before. Opaque AI systems, which is this black box idea. It's not transparent, it's not explainable, so it's difficult to trust, it's difficult to understand. Corporate power, where tech giants are innovating at a rate, not so much thinking about accountability. Recently, we had OpenAI, X, Roblox, a lot of these companies are letting go their ethical teams. So you can understand that there is a problem here because they're more about crunching the numbers as opposed to being accountable. I'm also just going to highlight fake news and misinformation. This is a key concern at the moment, especially with deep fakes. There's also the concern of environmental impact of digital infrastructure and also autonomous decision-making systems. Everybody's crazy about autonomous decision-making, about robots, about self-driving vehicles. But when it comes to accountability and also the bearing of risk, we have these concerns that do pop up. So as we go along, if there's anything else I can add, I guess, but for now, I'm going to give up the microphone for you to ask questions. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Thanuki. It's very thoughtful and provoking presentation indeed, because in a short time you have covered a lots of rights, which are when we are using technology, everyone should know their rights when they have a chance to use technology. Indeed, it's very interesting to know. So now that we have heard from both the panelists, and I'd like to ask a few questions from our panelists today. So at this time, I would like to pose some questions to Ms. Sleesha. I have a question regarding your insights on digital rights and women freedom in online. Ms. Sleesha, in your opinion, what practical tools and strategies can women use to safeguard their privacy and security in when it comes to online space?
Right. So before I go into the question, I just want to say, as I mentioned earlier, that we women are prone to face, privacy and security challenges a lot online. So I think almost all of us here have encountered online challenges, and I think some people believe that when like an online violence happen is to be ignored and just shrug off, because they think that okay, it happened online, no, like don't make it a big deal. You don't have to do all this. Just block the person or just report the person, so and so. But I think we should make a big deal out of all the online harassment that we have encountered, because as much as I said earlier also, as much as we value offline rights, we should value online rights as well. So we have a right to report a person when harassment or cyberbullying has occurred to us. So with that, I think I would like, the first thing I want all of us to do is to limit sharing your private or sensitive information, because I think this has caused many issues and problems around like almost all of us. So when sharing, your phone numbers and your emails, your bank account details, like this will lead to a very difficult situation in the future, because there are now many scammers. Now, when in the news also, we are seeing like there are a lot of online scammers, right? So I think why? Because we are always giving our private information, such as bank account details, our phone number, our location details, all of that, because we are we are thinking now this is a very sort of reliable thing, but which is actually not, because people are prone to make income through scamming and robberies and all sort of thing. Now when online scammers, these things happen because we give our online details, the sensitive details. So first thing I want all of us to do is to not share your sensitive detail, like even your location also. When sharing your location, just please don't do it. Like when I know the people sometimes post on Instagram and saying that we went to this place, but I suggest that you do it after like a week or so that you went to this place, because I think many people are sharing their locations online, and then people might come and do harassment to you. That happened in the real world. And another thing is that you can actually adjust your settings as to who you can see your post and who you can contact you. And I think now with the being famous in social media, I think everyone is trying to add or request the people that you don't know, and that I think we should stop, because adding to your account or your social media account unknown people will also cause harassment and um that I mean certain challenges, because when people you don't know start following you, and then they might stalk you and they might blackmail you, they might harass you. So these things we can, I mean, encounter in all of our daily life. So these things happen. And also the other thing is that we need to have a strong password, because I know that almost all of us use our birth date as our password. I think that's the one dumb thing that we do, because I mean many of our friends and the people we know knows our birth date, right? So I don't think using your birth date as a password is a very good thing, because when I mean if someone want to blackmail you and want to hack your phone or your computer, then they immediately get is that okay, let's type their password as their birth date. What happens? All your information and all your but like the privacy is, I mean, it's in vain if you put your birth date as your password. So I suggest all the women and the girls to have a strong password for their, all the accounts and their phone, their laptop, everything. And other thing is that, as I mentioned, I don't thing is that when you block or report someone, I think that is essential, because I mean sometimes people might annoy you and uh, come behind you and try to annoy you with their, blackmailing you or bullying you. So the first thing we have to do is we need to block the person or the people that harassing us or bullying us, and or sort of like that, and just share among your friends to report this person, because I think now that happens a lot nowadays. I mean, reporting people and blocking people. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that as I just want to point out that we all like to use public Wi-Fi rather than our own what do you call the data, right? So I think using public Wi-Fi is some sort of I mean, it might cause a lot of challenges for us, because uh, if we like sort of log into the public Wi-Fi, they might gather our sensitive information. It might happen. And I think I suggest when you're on public Wi-Fi to not use your sensitive information like your phone numbers, as I mentioned, phone numbers, location, and so and so. And I think to have a VPN is also a good choice when you are using public Wi-Fi. And also, other thing, as I mentioned earlier, we are prone to sort of get into scams, right? So I think that happens because we are always, when we go online, we click to unwanted links, right? So with that, I think almost all the scams are happening, and then they ask you the account details, your email, all sort of things. So I suggest, I strongly ask you to not go and click into unwanted links. And I mean, sometimes we might get all these messages from WhatsApp and Instagram and all that when you click it, you might win this all sorts of things. But please do not click on those links and get into trouble. And the other thing is, just want to let you know is that this is sort of like um, a like a point sort of that contribute to the mental health as well. So if you're in danger or if you're harassed by someone, just talk to someone and then sort of share your experience on it, and then ask from their, ask their guidance, because I don't want people to be alone in their own space when something like this happens, because online, we are still sort of new to these online spaces, right? So ask from someone that you trust that that this happened to me and then you need help. Yeah, so that's about it.
Yeah, yeah, Miss Leisha. Your suggestions are not only helpful for the women out there, I believe it helps the men as well in nowadays. So, along with that, I would like to ask you, how can we differentiate what to share in online and what not to share in online in order to navigate a social media responsibility?
Right. So I think we all know that we have a right to freedom of expression, right? And we can share almost everything on the internet. But I think this needs to be sort of limited as to what we share online. Because if we sort of put all our heart and mind into the online platform, some people might think, okay, this is too much. This is very um, triggering to me. This is very sensitive and this is very racist. So some people might think that, I mean, so that's why we don't, we can't have to put all the thoughts and all the expressions, the express that we have online, because that also might cause a challenge to us. So we need to know what to share and what not to share online. So as I mentioned earlier, I think sharing your personal information and sensitive information please do not share those things. But the thing is, I think sharing, hobbies and interest and your achievement is like it's an okay thing to share, because those things, I mean, people don't go behind those, and you can't actually do harassment or scams or anything like that. But sometimes it might, because let's say two people are having an argument over one film, and then sometimes it might lead to bullying. So, but the thing is, like, if something like that occurs, you need to be very, mindful whether you are going to reply to this or not, right? So if you start arguing with that person over and over, it might cause you to, get bullied or get harassed. So just need to be mindful when, arguing with the person or sharing your information with the person. So that we need to be mindful. I think all we are almost like in a mind to understand what is good or what is bad. I mean, if you are having an argument, I think we should know when to stop, right? So, and also other thing that we should be mindful is about sharing photos and videos. When sharing photos and videos, I don't see any problem, but if that sort of shares an identifiable information, let's say a number plate of your car or your vehicle, or let's say the number of your home, right? And also a number of your ID card or your bank details. Those things we need to be very mindful when sharing our photos and videos. And also for location, also I said we need to put like a sort of limitation, because if we share our location now let's say that we are on holiday, right? So if you're on holiday and then we share our location, and then some people know that we are not in our home, so they might come and rob our houses. I mean, that happened. It happened to like two of my friends as well. So it might happen, because that means that you sharing your location when you are away from your home, that is sort of like a danger to almost all of us, right? So I suggest that when sharing photos and videos, if you are away from home, I suggest we do it later on when we are, I mean, sort of in a very secure place, right? So, and the other thing is that, as I mentioned, we need to think twice, not twice, like 2 or 3 times before posting opinions or personal belief. As I mentioned, some people might get upset or triggered by, some of the, let's say, people might start commenting homophobic comments, racist comments, sexist comment, and sometimes it might lead to other comments where, like, people start arguing in wild languages, and then some people might get hurt, obviously. So you need to know. And the thing is that as a um, when you share something on the online platform, you need to do your research first. If you don't do your research first, you might sort of fall into a very uncomfortable place, right? So first you need to know what you are sharing, and then do your research, whether this is false or not, whether this is um, true information, right? Whether this has actually happened or not. You need to sort of do your research. So now, as an advocate myself, I also share all these women's rights issues and all the issues that we are facing. I first do my research, right? Because if someone asks me a question, I need to understand what to tell them, right? If I don't do my research, I don't know how to ask them. So first you need to do your research, and please engage well and craftedly, as in, like, you know the topic, right? If you don't know the topic, and then you might start an argument with the other person. So that might happen in the online space. So yeah, I think all those information are useful when we are sharing online content and what not to share.
Yeah. Thank you, Miss Sleesha. It's really valuable and it's timely needed one for other people out there. So now I move to Miss Thanuki, who made a comprehensive overview of the legal challenges in the tech law. I'd like to ask you about some privacy concerns. Miss Thanuki, could you please tell us what practical steps can tech companies take it to give users more control over their personal data?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a very interesting question where I guess we can sit and talk about steps that they should take, but the chances that they would do something about this is also quite low. And why is that? It's because there's a significant pressure on most of these tech companies. They're answerable to their stakeholders, to their shareholders. It's about meeting certain KPIs, right? If OpenAI, okay, let's just say if Claude, that's Anthropic's Claude releases an AI agent. So then OpenAI needs to rush and release one themselves. Apple will try to do something. Somebody else will try, okay, Google will try to put something out. So it's a rat race. Okay. So in light of this, enhancing user control over personal data is like not their biggest concern at this stage. But some of the practical steps to be considered, which of course we can talk about and hope for the best. One of the things is implementing transparent data policies. So companies like Facebook and Google, they have no choice but to provide clear privacy policies as much as possible. Often you may also get emails saying Google has updated their privacy policy, read now. I just saw yesterday, Facebook had said, here at Meta, we are updating our terms and conditions, our privacy terms, find out more, So that is an important thing to do, especially if, even if not the big tech companies, if you are a tech startup, right? It's important that you try and get this from the get-go, because waiting till things go, waiting till at the point where you're a major company is not the point at which you need to start thinking privacy. Privacy needs to be at front and center when it comes to tech companies. It has to be privacy by design, accountability by design. Okay, so having transparent data policies is very important. The second thing is having user-friendly consent management. Consent management. So platforms should try their best to allow users to easily manage their privacy settings, including opting in and out of data sharing. This is very important. Giving an opt-out as much as you allow them to opt in is important. Because if you take apps on the App Store or the Google Play Store, if you take 10 apps, you will have at least 6 to 7 of them where once you've subscribed to it, it's like you've gone down the rabbit hole. There's no finding your way back out of it. Okay, and no matter how much you try to unsubscribe, you cannot. Okay, so this is a problem. Having an opt-out is important. And now with the General Data Protection Regulation in the EU, and also as more and more data protection regulations come up in different parts of the world, including Sri Lanka, this opting out is considered an important factor. That is one. The other is the aspect of the right to be forgotten is a key aspect of data protection regulations. So giving the opportunity for people to have your data removed, to have it erased is also important. So that is my next point, which is data access and deletion tools. As much as you're giving them the ability to access, modify your data, you need to give them the opportunity to delete their personal data at any given point of time. And another key step that companies should consider and also just go for throughout, because this is very much at the core of all privacy regulations globally, is data minimization practices, meaning that companies should make sure that you are only collecting data which is necessary for your specific purposes. Okay, for instance, if you are let's say you're having a form for your customers to fill in at the point of making a purchase for a birthday cake. Okay, I don't think requesting the NIC number of the person who's purchasing the cake or the recipient of the cake is necessary, right? So that is an example of making sure you are minimizing the data that you're collecting based on necessity. Okay, so that's another important practice. And lastly, having regular privacy audits is very important. Organizations need to make sure that they are regularly auditing to ensure compliance with privacy standards and improve user trust at every step of the way, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence, which is part of everything now, for good or bad. The entire life cycle of an AI tool or a product needs to be regularly audited. And so those are the steps that I had in mind: transparent data policies, user-friendly consent management, data access and deletion tools, data minimization, and regular privacy audits. Those are the steps that I recommend.
Thank you, Ms. Thanuki. Those suggestions are very crucial in today's digital world indeed. So when I move to my another question is, you have mentioned a lot number of rights in your presentation, but when it comes to the implementations of the rights in our legislation, that ever doubtful. So how can law be adapted to ensure that privacy rights keep pace with a fast changing technology? What do you think on that?
Yes, so I mean, at the outset, I need to say that there will never be a time when laws and technology will be at the same level, right? Because technology is so quick to evolve, it's so quick to develop. Law and policy is always going to be a couple of steps, or maybe a couple of, I mean, not a couple of steps, many, many steps behind. Okay. So we need to keep that in mind. We cannot beat ourselves over it, but we need to always try to do our best to adapt to what is changing as quickly as humanly possible. So I think one of the things is we need to look at future-proofing our laws in the sense that making adaptive legal frameworks. How do we do that? A good example for this is, if you are familiar, or if you're not, you can take the Personal Data Protection Act of Sri Lanka, for instance, and take a look at it. Just read it. You'll see that there are several provisions which permit the Data Protection Authority to issue guidelines from time to time under different aspects of and sections of that particular act. Now, if right now, if any of you type in Data Protection Authority of Sri Lanka and go on the website, you will see they have released several different guidelines for public consultation. Okay, so that is relevant to this area that I'm talking about. To future-proof, you release a guideline, you go for public consultation, right? And then you improve those and you release the guideline. And that guideline can be used as like a soft law measure by companies, by individuals, to take certain decisions in line with this the tech that is evolving so rapidly. Okay, because we cannot think of what tech is going to be like in the next couple of weeks. Forget about months or years. So it is just important that we have a provision like that, which is future-proofing the laws. So that's one of the things. The second thing is, we need to always try to incorporate emerging technology into legislation. We need to keep it as open as possible. Very tough to do in Sri Lanka, but it's happening in the US, like the California Consumer Privacy Act includes provisions for data collected through AI and machine learning. So when they say machine learning, anything that is related to that, in some way or the other, will get captured. So now in the Sri Lankan Data Protection Act, we have mentioned automated decision making. That is the only instance where we are mentioning something related to AI, but AI is not only automated decision making. There are so many facets to artificial intelligence, which is not captured under our Act. So we need to make sure that we put in the right terms there that are broad enough to capture as much of the emerging tech as possible. So that's the second thing. Third thing is creating specialized regulatory bodies like the Data Protection Authority. If it's a cybersecurity thing, having a cybersecurity, a separate wing, and constantly kind of overseeing the compliance, but also churning out a lot of reading material, guidelines, policy documents for the public to constantly engage with and improve their knowledge on these areas so that they too can be very much a part of the compliance process. Okay, so that's another thing. Encouraging international cooperation is very important when it comes to adapting laws to keep pace with technology. You cannot try and ever operate on your own. Sri Lanka can't be like, this is our data protection regulation, we don't care about anyone else, and go with our thing. No, if you look at how the Data Protection Act came about, it had several rounds of consultations, and consultations not only with the public in Sri Lanka or the industry in Sri Lanka. We're also talking about several other countries, including the European Union, from where we get the GDPR, which inspired this act in the first place. Singapore and I think Vietnam, Belgium, like there were several different countries that they spoke with and got advice and incorporated into our act, even though it's very much localized. Okay, so having that international cooperation is very, very important, especially to get expertise that we don't have, because countries like ours lack the knowledge and those resources. And lastly, I would recommend implementing rapid response mechanisms. Laws should allow for quick updates in response to technological advancements. So a rapid response system is, I think in our setting, it's similar to this guidelines provision that we have. So I think that future-proofing kind of encaptures all of this that I'm talking about. But just to give you a recap, having a guideline provision so that we are making our legal frameworks adaptive is number one. Try our best to incorporate emerging technologies into legislation with use of like broad terms that can capture as much of emerging tech as possible. Creating specialized regulatory bodies to deal with this, with each of these very specifically. Encouraging international cooperation and having rapid response mechanisms are ways in which we can adapt laws to keep pace with technological changes.
Thank you. Very insightful, Ms. Thanuki. Thank you for that explanation. So we are now moving into our next segment of the today's panel discussion, and live will be stopped for now, and the floor is open for the Q&A of the audience. I thank the audience who joined via the live streaming of IYAP official. Thank you so much for